So looking forward to the future then, how are you going to manage, how are we looking as a community, as a country, as a fisheries department to manage the sargassum influxes?
Yes, well, before my role here as Chief Fisheries Officer, I was in a group at the University of the West Indies where we developed the Sargassum Outlook Bulletin for the Eastern Caribbean. And that was the first step in terms of management and response planning to a hazard like that. And that would be providing information 3 months or 6 months in advance of so that, well, now I ended up being in government, and persons like myself will have the information needed so that we can communicate the implications to our sectors. Actually, we did that in the bulletin. We would also always have an implication to fisheries, tourism, and the environmental sector. So, okay, well, it's turtle nesting time. There are sargassum influxes expected. What measures we need to put in place to make sure that the mums are able to get up the beach safely and return to the ocean safely, similar to when the hatchlings are heading back as well. So we would have people from the Sea Turtle Project as well using the information from that bulletin. Even with us and being in the Blue Economy Division, there's, seaweed coordinators, and they might use the Outlook Bulletin to see, what size cleanup crew they might have to get, what potential coasts might be more impacted than the others. So that's part of what I like to talk about in terms of impact forecasting and having the science help to support government agencies. In Barbados, we've started some work around exploring a Sargassum Management Act. And there was a sargassum adaptive management strategy written by a university at Surmis, developed through consultations with government and other stakeholders in terms of, what are the protocols in place to managing sargassum, and, what areas are more likely to be impacted than others. As I told you, it's really the east and the south coast, and the west coast thankfully has been spared. It is our platinum coast, although from time to time we have seen some influxes on the west, but nothing very significant. But we know places like Concept Bay, which is another landing site, Skeets Bay, which used to be a fish market before, every year are inundated with sargassum and the smell, for sure.
How can we go out to different communities, not just those fishing communities or former fishing communities, and kind of educate our children and our communities about sargassum seaweeds, the negative and also that there are positives? What are you guys doing to educate just the average Barbadian?
Well, there were some projects from university where they had, budget to do communications, and they would have set up some websites. We would have produced more or less a comic book about how fishers were coping with sargassum. UV Surmis has produced a lot of monitoring protocols as it relates to, how to tell the difference with the different species and types, how to go about monitoring the quantities, so we have an idea of the level of impact. I worked with Cindy Celeste, and she produced a video and poem about sargassum, and that has been quite impactful whenever I have to speak at different conferences and such like. We've been trying different communication products. Just recently, I think it was the Codgerton School, one of the teams was doing a sargassum related project, and they reached out for information. So we do have people come in to request information, but I know UE was doing a bit of public awareness and outreach as it relates to that. And our website, we carry some articles as well. But I think, nobody tends to think about it until it's on the coast. As usual, we're crisis driven and reactive in our responses. But we need to continue promoting the existing sargassum documentaries that are out there. And a colleague of mine, she did a children's book recently. I'm now seeing that there's a video as well too. Some jingles. They had some. I think there was a French artists who released a song on sargassum. And then there have been some art exhibitions as well with sargassum features, even locally. I've seen a few art pieces with sargassum, mostly in the positive light, thankfully. But I think I start to try to say, you know, we should be referring to it as sargassum-kissed shores and not, you know, sargassum-marred coastlines, and that we should try to think about it as the golden tide and not the brown tide, and just try to change perceptions. But it's not until, you know, innovators and young people who are interested in exploring opportunities can get the seed funding and sustain that funding to be allowed to scale up, that we could see an impact. There are several cottage industries, but no real large-scale solution that's really taken the tons and tons of sargassum that we're actually experiencing on our coast from year to year.
Okay, and I mean, I know you mentioned different projects from all over the world, but kind of a personal question: what is your hope where you see sargassum and the use of the seaweed and the byproducts in the next 5-10 years? What's your hope for?
Yeah, well, my hope would be that I am someone that really supports the offshore harvesting. I think now there are enough studies to show that, you know, the biodiversity at certain points in the ocean, it wouldn't impact that much, especially some of the ways that they're removing it, you know, they shake off the clinging fauna already. So we have some colleagues exploring blue carbon and trying to look at ways to sink it to the deep ocean and then sell carbon credits. And, you know, this is an interesting aspect as it relates to, you know, mitigation and trying to get it out of the way before it comes on the beach where it has become a menace. And once the environmental impact assessments have been completed in terms of the impact to the deep sea, and we definitely could see that as a viable ways and means, then I think that is the way that we need to go in terms of trying to sink most of the sargassum out to sea and then do innovative things like sell blue carbon credits, and some persons interested in, you know, using that to fund other incubators and target women and girls specifically to have those kind of businesses around using sargassum. And then I think biogas, for instance, is, you know, is something that it doesn't need sargassum. You could use any other feedstock. So that's something that could be sustained in the years of no sargassum. So I think that has a lot of potential, as well as the activated carbon too. So I would like to see all of those research initiatives around the activated carbon actually scaled up, because the carbon could be used for water purification, but it could also be used in face masks, quite a versatile product. So I think it was something that would always pique our interest, and there at the back end where we don't really think about it, but there's a lot of research funds being spent in just figuring out sargassum, figuring out where it's coming from specifically, you know, what's the best way to actually deal with it. And, you know, those funds are, you know, sustaining research initiatives by universities around the world. And it has also allowed us to engage with African universities, because they're impacted as well too. So now we have relationships with people in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire and others now that we would be corresponding with.
All right, well, thank you so much. I think you gave us a lot to think about and different ways to look at sargassum. I like the kind of the golden tide instead of the brown wave coming towards us. So thank you for sharing that with us. And of course, innovation, just keep on exploring, and hopefully we can kind of focus more on the positives and the opportunities of the sargassum seaweed versus the negative impacts and kind of like work around that. So thank you for sharing your information with us. And of course, you mentioned some documentaries and poetry and films out there. So if you want to do more research, you can find that online as well. So thank you, of course, to Dr. Shelly-Ann Cox. And we're going to take a little walk around the fishing community as well. So thank you.
So morning time. All right. So the seaweed is not as plentiful as it was in the past couple of years so far. So we will hope that it don't come back because it is affecting boats really, really, really bad. And then on the other hand, it also brings a lot of different fish as well. But the amberfish tend to move with the seaweed. And then you will get dolphins in between there because dolphins use like, if you got the trash, you got a pallet that drop off and the dolphins will go under that and you will get a good couple of heads off of that. So the seaweed is sometimes, when it is a lot in patches, the seaweed will do like how a pallet is and you will get little dolphins from it. So, but right now at the present moment, it is not coming back as heavy as it was in the past couple of years so far.
Think there's any particular reason for that, or I think it's just?
I believe it's just it don't start. So probably because the seaweed is used like seeds. It's got a lot of seeds onto it. So when those seeds shed, then that's where you see it keep spreading and the ocean then will push the little pieces all over and then it will just keep multiplying from there. But basically, it's the ocean right now. The ocean is determining everything right now in terms of the seaweed as well.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. And of course, you can stay tuned for more as we bring you more real talk in the face of danger presented by the Department of Emergency Management. Now, of course, you can stay tuned for more. Just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check out our YouTube channel and you can be in the know with Real Talk.